Welcome to Kim and Angela Talk. Kim is a biodynamic craniosacral therapist, PSYCH-K facilitator, curious human, forever student, and a loving mom. Angela is a Reiki master, PSYCH-K facilitator, metaphysical nerd, compulsive learner, and childless cat lady. Come along for the ride as they explore the mysteries of the universe and their own lives, all while enjoying a good laugh together.
Hi, I'm Kim.
And hey, I'm Angela. And together we're Kim and Angela Talks. So Kim, how you doing today?
I am very well and very excited about today's podcast.
Yeah, me too. This is our second episode, which is kind of crazy considering how long it took us to gear up to actually doing these.
I know. And now we're just kind of on a roll. Which is good. Which is very good.
Yeah. Right. So what's been going on in your world this week?
My world this week. It's family busy, tired, not sleeping well enough. That's pretty much sums me up, I think. And then I've had this weird thing going on with my throat because I'm also doing this kind of, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't want to call it a cleanse, but I'm kind of like supporting my eldest daughter who's doing kind of a diet thing that she needs to do for little issues. So we've kind of cut out like all sugar, including fruit and caffeine and dairy and basically any life source you could possibly have except for vegetables and meat. And so you can't sweeten anything with anything. And giving up my morning tea, I don't even want to say what that's like. And so I'm just trying to support her. We're trying to do every once in a while, she'll do these different things and I will support her along her journey. So we'll do it together. And yeah, so that's a little bit headachy with the lacking of the tea, a little bit brain fog. So yeah, that's only since yesterday. No, sounds like it's been forever. It feels like it's been forever, but it's only been a day. Yeah, like when you're used to starting your morning with like toast and cheese and your tea and so on, and then a cookie in the afternoon and whatever, and then you go to like an egg and some avocado and some greenery of some description. I think it's arugula on your plate in the morning. It's a little bit of a different start to the day. But I had a really good sleep last night, so who knows? Maybe the no sugar, no caffeine is helping.
Yeah. I mean, those things are stimulants, really, and sugar causes inflammation. Of course, I start my day off with my turmeric golden milk latte, soy milk latte and I totally put honey in there. Right. But I will say I am restricting my sugars, which people who are like, dude, you should eat sugar, would be like, well, honey and maple syrup still count. Well, whatever.
Yeah,
it's like
from nature. Well, I guess sugar is technically too, but it's less processed.
Yeah, and there's like some sort of benefit to it. Maybe I don't care if there is or not because I just like it, and it's like my diet is so clean anyway that like I'm like screw that. I'm not gonna give up my honey.
No.
And it's raw, local, unfiltered by caring beekeepers who sing to their bees at night.
That's so cute.
And love them. And have little bee hospitals for when the little bees get sick. They love their bees. That's the kind of honey I buy.
Right. Well, that's heartfelt honey. So that's kind of a heart and a body good. Definitely. Definitely. Good stuff. Well, I look very forward to getting back into having some honey at some point. Anyway, this is supposed to be a 3-week journey, so we'll see.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we can track your progress. You can track your progress through the podcast.
I could see how we do next week. Did I cave? No, I gotta be strong. But yeah, anyway, so far so good. We did this a while ago. I can't remember what particular thing it was, but it also had no sugar really to speak of, but you could have fruits. And I think you could have, I want to say you could have maple syrup for some reason, because I'm not sure exactly what it was we were trying to cut out, but that was a lot of very whole foodie kind of, that's when I made that buckwheat bread, which was so good.
Yeah.
But this time there can't be fermented things involved for these few weeks. So that kind of is the sucky part for that, because then you can't make that bread. So anyway,
yes. Supposedly maple syrup is actually a lot healthier in a lot of ways because of like something to do with like how it breaks down in your body. I don't remember what it was. It was when I was looking up stuff around a whole food plant-based diet. specifically for someone with diabetes. My boyfriend who has diabetes and is doing really well on it for a while, but then decided it was too extreme.
It's hard.
Whatever.
It's hard. Yeah. No, it's I think we feel better when we're doing it, but then there's that, it's so easy to fall back into old patterns, old comfort patterns and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I know
it.
it's so easy though. I mean, it's so easy that you like crap. Especially when you like, the reason why it's like we had to go on a trip. And then
so kind of got diverted.
And could not get him back on it, even though it reduced his A1C by a whole point, like in 6 months.
Wow.
Just that was the only change he had made. He wasn't exercising.
Wow. That's amazing, eh? What food can do.
Yeah, it's a great, the book I was using was like, well, there's quite a few books, but like there was like Mastering Diabetes and some books by Dr. Neil Barnard and the guy with McDougall, that dude. So, but whatever. Everybody has a right to choose the foods they eat and what they want to put into their body. And everybody has their own path to follow as far as health and well-being goes. So that's his choice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard though. It's hard.
It is hard when you feel like you're like having that experience. It actually is funnily enough sort of leading into my message for the day for
today. Interesting. Okay.
Right. Okay. So just to recap, we select messages for our podcast from our Oracle decks. This is of course not for you, for the audience, from the Oracle decks, so that we have a framework to use for our podcast conversation. And today my message was from the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Guidebook by Kim Kranz. I have a couple of her decks, but it's really cool. This one is the butterfly, which I thought was really interesting for various reasons. So in this, I picked a specific part of the message through muscle testing, and the message is: the energy of the butterfly is with us during periods of transition. Since air is the element of the heart, this change usually involves relationships. Hence, this leads me to my thing. Since transition is usually accompanied by some amount of discomfort, be extra patient and kind during this time, especially if the butterfly is you.
Very nice.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was hoping the message would lead me into today is this morning I cleared the last remnants of my heart wall using the motion code.
Very nice.
Yes. So again, butterfly transitions, opening up the heart, the air element. And actually, I also had a really good intuitive healing and reading session with Samantha Barrett yesterday morning. Nice. That was pretty intense. And by the end of it, I was feeling very, very good, but she released a whole bunch of stuff, lots of energies that were still affecting me from like many, many thousands of past lives, since we are, eternal beings, eternal souls in this universe, and have countless past lives that are happening in parallel. Sometimes those energies can leak through. Sometimes maybe it matters for some people, maybe it doesn't matter for other people. I know it does matter for me a lot because it keeps coming up, not just in like messages in various ways of like trauma that I have to heal. And it's not just the work I'm doing, it's work I do with other practitioners that shows up for me. And so this was like, she had learned some new techniques or whatever. So it was like almost like a warehouse cleaning of craziness, but like by the end of it, I felt like I'd been feeling good because I'd been doing this emotion code work. So I'd been feeling more even and balanced anyway. But doing the work with her just made me feel even lighter. And then today I finished clearing my heart wall with the emotion code. And a heart wall, as we've talked about before, but for the audience, is that trapped emotions that your subconscious builds around your heart to protect you. And this usually happens in times of deep trauma. I've done several sessions of clearing heart walls, and a lot of it was childhood stuff, which I mentioned in the last podcast, and also adult stuff. And it's actually really funny because the very last one was an emotion that got trapped when I was 43, and specifically related to my boyfriend.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I released that. And so it's interesting too that this, card was to come up because just, how relationships are always in transition or in flow, right? And in flux.
Right.
And you need to go with them and see what's going on. And a lot of what has been going on, I wanted to make sure, like, I knew things were going to be coming up as I released all these trapped emotions, because again, trapped emotions will kind of echo or amplify emotions that you're feeling in the moment, like almost like through a megaphone. Like the trap, if you have those emotions trapped within you as well, it kind of makes them sort of almost out of proportionate,
right?
Out of proportion as far as like how much they're amplified. And so it'll be interesting to see how this affects our relationship going forward, because I do a lot of work on myself. Right. And it's really, and he's a wonderful guy, as you've met him, you know who he is. Yes. And he's a great guy and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on as I am changing, because how this is the other thing, when people go through a period of growth, it affects everything around them.
Shifts. Yeah.
Yeah, it affects your friendships. Like some friends might fall away. It affects how you interact with your closest friends and your closest relationships. Doing this work, like my relationships with my parents have changed. Not so much with my dad, because we always had a pretty close relationship, but definitely with my mom, things are getting easier with her. I don't talk to my brother, unfortunately, enough to know if that would affect that. But definitely seeing, it's really nice to have conversations with my mom be a lot easier, as you know.
That's a shift in a very good direction.
Yeah. Those usually aren't easy.
No.
But a lot of that too is holding space, for that person to be who they are.
Right.
And a lot of that too, that can be really hard when you're sort of bogged down by a lot of traumatic energy stuck in your body, or these trapped emotions that are, because again, everything's energy. Trapped emotions are energy. Trauma energy can be stuck in your body if you have some sort of trauma that you aren't able to shake off. So these emotions, all this stuff really affects you. And as you shed this energy that's blocking you and really hiding your light, everything around you changes. So it definitely will be interesting to see what comes up in my relationship with my boyfriend, as well as with relationships with my close friends and my family, who thankfully kind of are really far away from me normally.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe I'll finally feel like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to go to North Carolina and visit my mom, because my brother moved her up there from Florida. And it's like, this card was also really interesting to me too, because it's like, since air is the element of the heart, this, and I had just released, like just an hour before we started doing this recording, I just finished releasing the last trapped emotions of my heart wall. So it's like,
cool timing.
I know. It's like every time, it's like, it knows, the higher self knows what to bring forth. And then again, too, the message I also really love about this is like being extra patient and kind with yourself, because these changes within us, it affects us. And like right now, I'm feeling really great. Later on in the day, I might start to get weepy or sad feeling, just through the processing of these emotions. And, but yeah, just being kind to myself and being kind to my partner and being kind to the people around me, and recognizing like I am going through this growth period, this butterfly transformation.
Yeah.
Next time you see me, I'm going to have wings. You know?
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's really beautiful. It's also really, so this, I felt like this was a really great and pertinent message for us today because, you know, that's what we're doing. That's what we're both doing is we're transitioning. We're coming out of our cocoon, you know, we're getting ready to fly. Yeah.
Yep.
In her book, Wisdom of the Council, Sarah Landon talks about that in one of the early chapters about like, you know, you not being the same person you were 10 years ago and to look back and to have that gratitude for like who you were and who you are becoming. And of course, she uses the whole the analogy or the metaphor of the butterfly of like, you know, how you're a caterpillar and then you're going through this cocoon phase, you know, where you're changing, where like, and sometimes it's, you know, dark and still, but there's a lot going on underneath, you know, and then you kind of burst out of your cocoon and then you got to bring out those wings and let them dry off, you know, before, and you have to do it. You have to go through the work. If someone tries to open the cocoon for you, if like it happens with butterflies and also birds, if you try to take off the shell or open the cocoon for that creature, it'll die because it needs that process. It's like children being born. They need the process of labor. Butterflies, any creature that goes through the sort of transformation needs this process in order to build the strength and have the necessary metabolic and physiological things happen so that they can survive once they leave the cocoon or the egg. And that's what this work is. And it's also why you can't heal other people.
Right.
You know, you can only heal yourself. In the work we do with Reiki and biodynamic craniosacral therapy and PSYCH-K and stuff, we can help people through their process. We're not taking the cocoon off for them. They're doing that work.
Right. Yeah.
But we're holding space for them. We're facilitating for them. You know, we're helping maybe with guidance. But we're not doing the work for them because the work really is showing up. The work is saying, I'm ready for this. I am ready to take this next step to work with someone to go this next step further to become the person that I want to be, to become to actualize my authentic self.
Right.
So yeah, bam, butterfly.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Very on point for today. Yeah, love it.
Yeah. So I don't know. What do you got to say about that?
Excellent. Well,
You've gone through a lot of change and growth over the years since we've known each other.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's still continuing to this day and probably will until, like we've said, we take our last breath. And various, you know, intensities and rests in between and frustrations and what have you. And yeah, it really is all about yourself, your work, and then the change of your perspective on things allows for changes around you to happen. You know, if you pigeonhole someone who's always nasty or looks nasty or whatever, and then you get all like, ooh, and then they're not nice, and then, you know, one day something happens and you realize that's, you know, maybe they just look that way, or maybe they have something bad going on, and when you talk to them they're actually quite sad and so happy to be talking to you, and so your perception changes, and then it's like, you know, so if you kind of look at the world that way, that you never know what the other person is going through and what they've been through and where they've come from, and to not make judgments, because we've all had our different paths, we've all had our different experiences that have led to who we are today. And, you know, it's all about coming to the point where you can make decisions for how you want to live your life now, and then using the beautiful tools like PSYCH-K to work through things and to heal things and to develop new beliefs. You know, because we get fed certain beliefs as we grow up and from society and friends and whatever, and then we come to firmly adhere to that's how it is, but it doesn't have to be that way. And just shifting the beliefs, you shift your perception, and then life just shifts in a totally different way. So, which is beautiful. Nothing has to be set in stone and it is the way it is forever. It doesn't have to be that way. So that's quite freeing and liberating with that thought. But it doesn't mean that we don't fall into old patterns. We don't have to pause again. And again, there's that patience and acceptance of where we're at, and acknowledging that, I think, is important. Yeah. And then just continuing when we're ready, and all these beautiful things that we've learned with all the craniosacral and the PSYCH-K and the Reiki. Like, I don't know, it's eye-opening in a sense of just self-discovery, of who you are. It's like, wow, okay, wait a minute, and there's just layers of that. And it's just, you kind of fall in love with yourself and then the world around you as a result, because it's like everything's coming from this place of, I don't know. So yeah, it's amazing when you look at it from that way. And some days it's easy and some days it's hard. And that's okay too.
That's for sure. Well, it's funny too, because like so many times I hear, oh, people can't change, people don't change. Well, absolutely we can change. Absolutely we can. If you think you can't change, you definitely won't. Right. If you don't put any effort into it, you won't. If you want to be, stuck in a lower vibrational energy where you're unhappy all the time, or you're angry and you never work on it yourself, or don't look for help from other people, then yeah, of course you're not going to change because you're stuck there, and maybe that's what's right for that person. There's definitely, in my past times where like I was definitely at a lower vibrational point and it didn't seem like stuff was going on, and I wasn't changing. But I was able to get to a point where it's like knowing that I wanted to change and knowing that I wanted something different for my life. And so I just started working on myself. I started listening to certain self-help books and certain authors like Dr. Wayne Dyer and Luann Oakes, and listening to sound things and self-hypnosis stuff with like Dr. Lee Poulos, and trying to like these like parallel, like a lot of different things. And then finally, and this was all like working on self, because I'd never felt really good going to therapist. I tried like after I was in a car accident when I was 16, where I went into a windshield, and things were not great after that for a few years, and maybe committed a felony. Statute of limitation is totally up. Not confessing what it was. And I was a minor.
That's good.
But,
all good.
But my mom took me to the psychiatrist, and of course the funny thing is like she talked the entire time in this session with the psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist was like, I think you're the one who needs to come see me. Daughter seems fine. I wasn't fine. I was horribly depressed, but it's not, and then she took me to go see this priest, which of course really did not work because we're Catholic, as you know. Right. So it's just like being able to, I don't know, that was a bit of a sidetrack, but like, other couple of times I've tried to talk to people and just really didn't see it. Like I literally had one therapist tell me, it was like I was working at Evergreen and having an issue with a bully, someone who liked to bully people, and he knows who he is. And I went to this one therapist to do EMDR on it, which was effective for the specific issue. It wasn't anything that really, EMDR is great for a lot of things, but it wasn't really, for the one thing, it was good for me, but not really what you would say was good comprehensive therapy. And like the therapist was like, didn't like, even though I started to cry about something different towards the end, she wasn't like, maybe we should talk about this in another session. It was like, that was it. Like she didn't want to see me again. And then I had a therapist later when I was getting divorced be like, you seem like you have a good head on your shoulders. You don't need therapy. And I was like, you do not know what a hot mess is. Like super self-aware doesn't mean I'm not like, I don't.
Right.
I'm
Right.
okay.
Yeah. And haven't healed a lot of underlying things that
Yeah.
reside here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
my personal experience with that kind of cognitive behavioral therapy, not great.
Mhm. Yeah.
But these other things were helpful. And then I got to the point where I really needed help and didn't know who to ask and just was like, ask source,
Mhm.
goddess. I was like, I need help. And that's when Reiki came into my head. And the rest is history, as they say. When finally it took a week and Reiki kept coming into my head. But when I
Nice.
finally went to go see Melinda, just amazing. And I really never looked back since. That was definitely, I would say, the beginning of me coming out of my cocoon for sure.
Okay. Well, you see, you made the active choice of asking.
Yes.
Right? Opening up, there's our free will, right? We can continue on our merry way and just do what we normally do, or sometimes we need to ask for help and then we'll get that direction that we need. But you just have to ask.
Yeah. And this is asking, like opening up to source,
Mhm.
opening up to however you want to say it, higher self,
Mhm.
source energy, creator energy, God, goddess, however you see that,
Right.
opening up to divine guidance. And I received it. I mean, because like it literally was like a voice that was not my own in my head. I didn't know anything about Reiki. Like
Right.
I'd seen the word, and I lived in Olympia, and there was like, and I was like, oh, some hippie shit, whatever.
Yeah.
I totally like, even though I was like spiritual, I'd been had was on a spiritual path. Like I didn't know anything about Reiki, so
Right. Right.
having that word just come randomly into my head
Mm.
was just like, that was completely unexpected. So that's also when you know that you are getting divine guidance, is when it's
Yeah.
something that is like would not have occurred to you. It's not your logical thought pattern.
Right. Right.
And it changed my life, the next time I went to go see my naturopath, shortly after that, she's like, what'd you do? Because my shoulders had relaxed, like they'd gone from
Right.
being up here to like
Right.
relax.
Physically, there was
There
signals
was
of
physical
change.
changes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I
Energy.
love about this stuff is like you'll do energy work or work with different people and stuff. And
Mhm.
like other people will notice stuff. Like I had the body code session with Claire, and then my massage therapist is like, what do you do?
Right.
Well,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
amazing stuff. I mean, it really does have physical ramifications, even though it's energy work.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I was going to say to you too, is to be aware of anything that changes physically too for you,
Yes.
any body aches or whatever that might transform and transmute into no longer any pains. So, because yeah, it definitely switches into the physical too eventually.
Actually, it's funny that you should say this because early in the day that my upper back was hurting in between my shoulder blades, and now it's not.
Uh-huh. Interesting. There you go.
Right on.
Yeah,
I'll
very
take that any day because,
definitely.
yeah, I've had a life of chronic pain and especially back pain, but yeah. And
Oh,
I look forward to a series of days where like I've got no pain.
mhm.
I live like, or even if it's just like on a one or two, it
Right.
would be super nice.
That'd be good.
But, and I know that day is coming.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yay.
Definitely. Well, it's funny. It reminds me of that story I probably told you, but I'll repeat myself, to do with an osteopath that had a client. And this was a story he told me in relation to people thinking, oh, maybe it doesn't work as far as whatever. And he was saying how, someone would come in, let's say with a hip issue,
Mhm.
sore pain, give them a session, and they get off the table and it was still sore, and sent an email, angry that it still was sore and expected it to be like gone. And then the person went home and had a huge discussion with their significant other about some issue that they hadn't been able to address before. And in expressing that to their partner, their hip thing just shifted. So, and went away. And then their hip wasn't sore anymore. So then they did send an email the next day saying, oh, so sometimes it's the emotional or energetic part that's causing the pain, but it's not really the pain that needs to be addressed. It's kind of this other part, which is what all these great things address, right? It's
Yes.
all that. And so then just because that was able to happen, that shifted the physical. So it's this lovely dance between it all. It's not just straightforward. So I think that's the cool thing about it. It's you never know what's going to happen. So
Yeah,
what opens up and what changes.
totally. And like, the emotion code is a very targeted practice modality for targeting trapped emotions, but it doesn't mean like, I know that biodynamic craniosacral therapy and Reiki release all kinds of traumatic energy stored in my body, including trapped emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Was having an exchange with a friend, I don't know, maybe a month ago, where towards the end of it, I just felt this wave of grief release from my heart.
Oh, wow.
And it was like pertinent. And I could afterwards, like that whole area of my heart was like, was tender.
Mm.
And it was, like he's up in Canada,
Yeah.
so the stuff also works over a distance, which is like you love, but it was like, but I know that was like a release of grief from my heart wall
Right.
that needed to go.
Nice.
So yeah, it was really quite, I mean, and I will say it was like, I felt it, and like definitely was able to like take some time after that exchange to kind of really be with my thoughts and to think about these things and what was going on there. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I've had other situations where I was working on somebody and when we were studying BCST in a practice session where I just felt these waves of grief come off of her, but like palpable, like it was like a wave that like of thick energy that just kind of went right through my body. And it was just like so much. And yes, did I resonate with that sense of grief? Absolutely. Because as we know, most of the people who are doing this work do come from their come because they're working on healing themselves, right? So I know that BCST releases these things. I know that Reiki releases these things. Motion code is a little bit different because you can really target that stuff and kind of like knock them out pretty quickly, if you want. I mean, as long as it's safe, as your subconscious and your body still has to agree that this is safe for you to do this work, and like you can't overdo it.
Right.
Sometimes it might feel like you have, but but the subconscious is saying, oh, okay, this is safe to do and you can handle this. So we'll do this little bit here. Because when I first started working on my heart wall, it was like one or two emotions, and then I'd really from the heart wall, and then I'd release some other ones. And then I was able to do more and more for each session, as it was almost like I was building up a muscle, really.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how this progresses as I work through the certification, for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. But, and then also PSYCH-K does the same thing, like with the transformation of the perception of stress.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially I worked with someone who had a terrible, terrible thing happen to them when they were a child. And we did the transformation of the perception of stress. And it was hard. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's hard but they got through it. And it does bring up a lot of stuff, but in a way it's kind of good because like you're then transforming this energy that is like keeping you stuck in this loop to a point where it's like, oh, that's like watching a video that happened to somebody else, and I no longer have this emotional resonance for it. Like when you had, I believe that when you no longer have the emotional resonance to a memory of something traumatic that happened, that has also released whatever trapped emotions that are around that, or at least a majority of them.
Right.
So that you can get to, because again, sometimes it takes a couple of times, and like sometimes you want to attack it from different angles, because I think one trap that some people fall into is like, oh, well, I do this and this is great and I don't need anything else. This is the only thing I need. It's like, well, that's great for you. I will throw all the spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks.
Exactly.
I want to see, and I want to be open to using whatever modality works the most efficiently, what's best for me, what's best for the person that I'm working with.
Yeah.
Because sometimes PSYCH-K will work great for one person and be really difficult for another person, especially if they've got like issues. And also with Reiki, like some people, some people just aren't open to that energy, to receiving energy in that way. But some people really want to do something more active, like PSYCH-K. And then for other people, like maybe emotion code is going to be better because like they won't get stuck in their analysis paralysis about what's going on with them.
Yeah, yeah, overthinking it too much. Yeah, and I mean sometimes, depending on what the issue is, you might be like, I'd like to be more self-confident in doing whatever. That feels very psyche-ish.
Yes.
In that it's just kind of like a goal that you have and you want to tackle that versus, things that are more traumatic and maybe more emotional. Maybe the emotion code thing would be better to begin with because you don't really have to talk to the other person about it. So things can be cleared. And then, like I think it just depends on where you're at emotionally, even just in the day of what you feel like you can handle. And sometimes being held on the table, be it with Reiki or Cranio, is kind of the order of the day where it's kind of like you just want to drop and you just want to kind of relax and you just kind of want to let things flow versus being verbally active and stuff with the other modality. So it really just does come down to where you're at in that moment. And that's kind of an important thing to figure out.
Right? Absolutely. And then like the thing with Cranio and Reiki is like when you can get into that deep, deep place of relaxation, like that still point, oh my God, it is like magic. It is like,
don't bring me back. I'm fine. Right here.
Yeah, it is like you are like, and then so much can happen in that space where like it's stillness, but it's everything. Yeah, I love that. That is like one of my favorite feelings, like physical feelings. 100%. Like if you can get to that point, it is amazing. But but at the same time, some people will find that really difficult because they're dissociated from their body. So like you might need to do all this other work before you can even get to that.
Even able to be relaxed. Right. Yeah. That's the tough thing is we do and we run and we got lists and we got activities and we got demands and we've got expectations and we're all over the place and our bodies are just like in this constant state of so yeah, sometimes it's hard if you have a lot of things like that maybe sometimes, like you said, that needs to be let go of first or worked on first, and then you can, so it just depends. But it's all magic. It's all great.
I know, I love this shit. It's amazing. Love it.
Me too.
Yay.
Yay to it all. Yeah. So, well, do we feel complete over the butterfly?
I think so. Because I think it'll also kind of go into your message as well.
Yeah, well, I almost kind of just segued into mine. There was something you said, and then I'm like, that would be a good segue. And then I was just enjoying the moment, and then I forgot. So my card today came from our lovely, beautiful
yay!
Yeah, I know. Council of the Horses Oracle deck, which we love,
Sandra Wallen, she's our PSYCH-K teacher, chironsway.com.
Yes, she's awesome. And the beautiful card that I pulled today was this one.
Well, I love all the decks, but
I know I love all the
all the
I
cards.
Can't say one's more of a favorite than the other. So
well, I know the artist who does her art. It's Kim Elway, right?
I think so. Yes.
Oh my God.
McElroy.
McElroy. Okay, Kim McElroy. Sorry, Kim. Yeah. I love her art, and her paintings of horses are so beautiful.
I know you can feel them.
I know.
Very exciting.
Council of Horses, available on Amazon, Banyan Books.
Right deck.
East West Books. Oh, go to bookstore.org because if you don't like Amazon, just saying.
Okay, good. Very true. So now I'm not sure. So it's so funny when I was writing it down. My first thing was it Orion's Way? Is that how we say it? Because I was thinking Orion's Way, but it's not an O. Orion's. So it's, how do you pronounce that?
What's it spelled?
Arion, Arion.
Orion, I would guess. I'm the worst person to ask for
pronunciation. I know. Anyway. The beautiful horse. So it's Arian's protege is what it's called. And the message of the card I was laughing at because for the past 2-3 days, I've had kind of like a lump in my throat, or like kind of like you want to clear it. And I was actually going to speak to you about it to see maybe what's going on emotionally for this area today. And so to find a finding your voice card, which is what the message was, finding your voice, I thought that was hilarious considering this whole throat thing. Yeah, so the key message out of there was challenging the viewpoint of, I think, well-meaning family, friends was kind of like the whole thing. But I think what it gets down to for me, the finding the voice and my viewpoint, is that my viewpoint tends to be just slightly off center as far as the mainstream.
Just a tad.
Just a
Just
tad.
a little bit.
And so I think pretty much the people that surround me and my family have kind of become accustomed to, okay, that's fine. We get it. We get it. Yeah, sure. But they also
Mom's gone crazier.
Oh no, not another one. She's learning another modality. But yet they do come for assistance and they do use the help. And so, there's always that love kind of, but still a little bit crazy mom. So
But you're a good kind of crazy mom.
a good kind of crazy. Yeah, I'm a helpful kind of crazy. But I think my problem with the whole voice thing, or using my voice or voicing my opinion, is that I tend to get very passionate about it because I'm really excited about it. And I just want everybody to know. But it's funny when you go through this like story that it has to do with the horse. It's talking about the main horse had the ability to communicate with humans. So the humans really loved that about the horse. The horse loved that about the humans. And so the horse helped in battle, attain things, whatever. So it was a really good kind of working relationship. And so this mother horse was telling this little baby horse all about this horse. And so he wanted to work really hard to try and talk with humans because he thought that would be great. And so, but he couldn't like verbalize anything. So he was trying to communicate through his actions. And then the humans would like train him to like walk properly and not do all this, whatever. And through his exuberance of wanting to communicate or trying to do that, then he became known as the difficult one, or the kind of rogue horse that you just couldn't tame because he really just wasn't falling into line the way everybody should be falling into line. But then, so now he's kind of cast aside, which obviously was not what he wanted. It was the opposite. But then he channeled, I think that was what happened. He like channeled the emotion of kind of being frustrated, but then he became labeled as too much to handle. And so then one day, a lady found him and looked at him in a more loving way, which comes to kind of perceptions changing, and taught him that, he could channel those emotions and stuff, but through the love of accepting who he was, then he was able to kind of like shift back into that kinder, mode of communicating with the humans. So it was kind of, it really spoke to me on the level of, I tend to get over exuberant. I tend to get frustrated when people don't want to step up. And it's like, there's something that could help you with this. And that's family members, most of them talking about, but for some friends too. And just like, it doesn't have to be so difficult. It's really hard for me. And I know that's something I have to work on, for accepting for people where they are, but they tend to want to come to you because they do want help, but then they don't want to do the step up part to actually do the work, which they do need to do for themselves. That's the part I find frustrating. It's kind of like they're saying with their voice, they don't want to be here, but they don't want to work at being anywhere else either. So it's almost like they're happy being where they are and maybe complaining about it or something. And I just find that really hard because I get very excited when there's better, bigger potentials out there for everybody. And that's obviously my thing that I have to work on, is releasing that, which I have been, and just accepting people for where they are and showing them the love, like the horse or the lady did to the horse, because that is where they are right now, and that's okay. And to making space for where they're at and just listening, it's funny because one of the things it says later on, is that people might not listen or come to your way of thinking about things. But the important part really is to listen to yourself and to act on your own convictions. And that's really what kind of your voice is kind of hearing your own inner voice and making sure it's yours and making sure it's not someone else's, like a mom or a dad or a friend or a teacher or whatever, which goes back to the Psych-K thing of the beliefs that get set up early on. So make sure it is your authentic voice, and maybe having that as a goal, that you search that out and make sure it's yours, so then you can listen. And then maybe those things of people not listening or wanting won't come up anymore, because that's not a charged thing, because you are authentically listening to yourself. So then that will show up for you in your realm. So maybe there's the key message right there. Again, it comes back to working on your own stuff, and then the rest will just kind of like, shift.
Yeah, because it's about holding space. And like there's the Lao Tzu quote, like the greatest gift you can give is that of your own transformation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as you're going through that, it becomes easier and easier to hold space for others. Because I totally get it. Because like, especially when I started doing Reiki, I was like, oh my God, you have to try this. It's the best magic ever. And like, yeah, a lot of people were into it. And other people looked at me like, I was nuts, which is fine. I don't care. But it's like being able to hold space for where that person is at. And it kind of goes back to my card too, about like, my transformation, and like, how is this going to affect, my relationships? Because if I'm transforming, are the people in my sphere going to stay in my sphere vibrationally? Are they going to be doing their own work? Are we still going to be able to match or to go on this journey together? Or are we going to, are things going to fall away? And it's hard to tell sometimes.
Yeah.
Because so many things happen in this life. And then when you're doing this work and you can't force someone to do this, because I totally get it. It's like, being like, oh yeah, you hear someone you love is not doing well. Like I have a friend actually who's battling cancer right now. And I was like thinking, why the hell didn't you tell me about this months ago? Like she didn't tell me about it until she was like, oh, I'm going in for surgery. And it's like, I would have totally gone to her house and done Reiki with her and done Psych-K, anything. And not saying it would have cured the cancer or anything, but anything to kind of help remove any obstructions and energetic obstructions in her body that might be contributing to it, that might make this whole process easier, or even doing this work before you get to that point. Because when your body is in a state of stress all the time, that's when and there's tons of studies, you can look them up online, and don't tell me that this isn't true, but when you're experiencing so much stress or you have a bunch of trauma, your body has no room to be healthy and to heal itself.
Yeah, it's very contracted.
Yeah. So being able to open, like you want to be able to get to this space with your, because we're spiritual beings, but we have this human body. You want to be able to get to the space and in your body where like it's open and everything can flow, your energy can flow, and it's contributing to your health, not having a bunch of blockages that are like making that impossible. And like when you have chronic stress, I mean, that's like one of the number one factors of like early mortality or something like that. So
it's a lot of a lot of fun hormones and chemistry running around.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And if you want the science for that shit, it's all online.
Yeah.
And there's tons of research actually about how Reiki helps with people, and probably also with PSYCH-K as well. Like these modalities help people relax and get into this state of, being able to relax and allow their body to become and to get into this healing field, this like state where they can actually heal themselves. Because no matter what, you're always your own healer. Like you can go to a doctor who's going to cut you open and do all these things to you, but your body is still the one that's going to be healing. you know,
Mhm.
you are still
Mhm.
going to be healing yourself. They're, again, they're assistants or facilitators. They're
Mhm.
not the one who are healing you. You're healing you.
Right. Right.
You know,
Yeah.
when you come to us, we're helping, we're facilitating, but you are doing your own healing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yippers.
Yeah.
Our bodies are amazing. We just have to let it do what it does best. But yeah, we tend to get in the way with all of our stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny too, because my thing with Samantha yesterday, a lot of it was throat chakra
Oh, was it really?
stuff. So yeah, when you said that
Maybe I was
earlier,
feeling yours for the maybe that was it.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of stuff in my throat chakra that
Yeah.
needed to be released and healed and transformed. So
Yay. That's very good. Very good. All right. Well, so do we feel complete about that one?
well, it's your message. You tell
My
me.
message. I mean, I feel like I said, it was dead on for kind of what's physically been going on with me the past couple of days, which I just found really funny. And so, yeah, so I think that listening to yourself and acting on your own convictions and being authentic is really a key thing, and not being, oh, what's expected of you, or oh, what's needed of you, or whatever, but to really reflect on that. So that'll be my thing for the week, I think,
Yeah.
to take a nice gander at that.
Well, and I'm sure so many people can relate to that too. Because else, I know that there's in relationships, I've definitely been silent
Mhm.
just to keep like a sense of peace.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now that
Yeah.
I'm,
Rock the boat. And,
yeah. And
Yeah.
that's not healthy either.
No, very true. And I think I can also relate to what happens sometimes when you don't use your voice or state whatever you need. Sometimes what can happen is you stuff it down, kind of like the horse did, and then you get very emotional, and then outwardly it goes
Yeah.
in a not so constructive or pretty way, because you've kind of like had enough. And it just kind of so definitely maybe working on not having it get to that point and being okay, looking at the fears, looking at secondary gains, looking at all those wonderful PSYCH-K things to see kind of what stops that flow of being able to speak what you need, or or how things are hit. Yeah, I think my thing too is sometimes you'll say, oh, well, that really hurt, like being aware of your own hurts or activations, but also being able to express them in a way that then the other person cannot feel defensive about it, but go, oh, I didn't realize that was whatever. But that also falls on where they're at too. So it's not always met with that. And I think sometimes that's where you tend to then not say it again, because then they're like, they're really hurt, or they're really angry, or they go away, walk away. And then there's that, oh, like, okay, maybe shouldn't have said anything. Right. Yeah. So it's coming to terms with it's okay wherever it's met, if you express it in a loving, not a screaming match way, but just, and then wherever it falls with them is just where they're at. So that's not on you at that point. But yeah, it's tough. That's a tough one for me. Communication that way has really always been tough. So
Oh yeah, me too. Absolutely.
yeah.
Just probably why I've like kind of stuff that stuff down, which is not, like you said, not healthy, because then that's energy gets trapped in your body as well.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, there's a lot to, there's always jokes about that, like, about stuffing things down really far and just like locking up the key, that's how you deal with it. Well, yeah, and that's how you get sick, and that's how you become miserable.
Right. Might be effective in the short term, but in the and even in the long term for the relationship of whoever you're stuffing it down with too. It's like you're not being authentic with that person, whoever it is, be it a spouse, be it a child, be it, like it doesn't matter who it is. You're not being truthful level, and energetically, I think that's still always there. Even if the words aren't there, there's still that kind of thing. And so that's not good either. So.
And you can only do your part. And hopefully, if you can do that and hold space and be open to that and go with an open heart, that your partner or your friend or, whatever is going on, they will also be able to meet you there. But that's not always the case either, unfortunately.
Yeah. So you just have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
not be panicked about that, that could cause whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can I mean, you're only responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
So you just do what you can do, and things will evolve as they do, because we are where we are.
Yeah.
And where we are is where we need to be at this moment in time. So
Yep. So kindness to ourselves.
yeah. And again, be kind to yourself during this
Mhm.
process.
Definitely. Yeah. So I feel pretty complete.
Cool.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah. So we decided that you were the one who is going to pull the message for the audience.
I was. So, okay, I'm going to put this away. So, our audience card today was out of the magical unicorn.
Yay.
And the card that was pulled was loving your parents.
Aw.
Cute little guys. And the message at the bottom is no matter what, your mother and father love you as much as they can. So looking through the message that's in the book, the message that kind of came out of that was, even if you don't see one of your parents, be as loving as you can be. And that this love also helps everyone feel better. So yeah, so I mean, I feel like as a daughter, definitely loving your parents and gaining an understanding, which helps as you get older, kind of where they're at and where they've been. So having a nice look at that. And then as a mom, also with kids, yeah, just flipping that around in a different way. But love makes the world go round. So I think you can't hurt anything by loving them, even if a situation is not great, depending on, because lots of people have issues with, not myself, thankfully, very thankful, along with my parents. But I know sometimes a parent thing can be difficult, and it doesn't hurt to love them. So even if there's lots of stuff, because that will just hopefully help them and yourself heal too. So.
Yeah. And I've definitely spoken to you before and mentioned it in the last podcast and hinted at it earlier. Difficult relationship with my mother. But the thing is, she did the best she could. My dad did the best he could. And there's just a point where, as a child, you have to get over it. I'm not going to be so harsh as, like, say, Carolyn Macy's, like, just get over it. I mean, like, there's always a lot of stuff. And forgiveness is really not about saying what anybody did was okay. It's all about not letting that stuff have power over you and not letting it affect you in the present, or reclaiming your power, basically. And doing the emotion code. So, like, I needed to do a certain number of people to practice on. So I decided I'd practice on my mom and my dad as well, with their consent, of course, because it's an act of love for them as well. Knowing, because I knew that both of them had pretty messed up childhoods, and both of them suffered, emotionally, because of their parents, as and some, my mom's case, physically as well. And doing this emotion code stuff, like, sometimes you get an age where the emotion was trapped, and, like, seeing, like, what was trapped at my mom at a very early age really just heightens the compassion I have to her. And I will say that I had been on this journey of forgiveness with my mom for a while, definitely. And even though knowing, not saying that, like, I had a great childhood or whatever, or that it was okay what went on when I was a kid, but knowing that I signed up for this as one, but she did the best she could. She really did. And my dad did the best he could. And do I think, yeah, maybe they probably shouldn't have had children? Yeah. But, I didn't have children mostly because I never wanted to bring someone else into this world to have any kind of like anything like the experiences that I did when I was growing up. But and I had moments where I didn't talk to my dad and didn't talk to my mom. And I was working on myself during those times. And then I got to a point where I could, try to engage with them, and it was really successful with my dad. When I got to that point with my mom, not so much always. It was still very difficult and has been. But I will say doing PSYCH-K for her or with her in a way, and emotion code for her stuff is actually making our communication a lot better and making it very much easier, is increasing my compassion for her. And just being able to recognize that, she's a human being. And that's, I think, part of the trap or problems is like when you're a kid, there's this person who's supposed to be perfect and to love you and protect you. Well, they're not always capable of that. They're not always capable of protecting you all the time or being the parent that you want all the time. They're human beings. And especially if they've had their own traumas in their lives, it can really affect you and how you grow up. But you, at some point, have to take responsibility for yourself and work on your healing yourself, and also forgive them for being human beings. And part of forgiveness is love. Like your guard was saying, is like you love them, even if you can't love what they've done to you, or you can't love how they act or how they are expressed as human beings. You love their soul, like the who their eternal being is, because we are all one. And if you spend time hating your parents or hating anybody, then you're hating yourself as well, and you're only damaging yourself. So being able to have that forgiveness for them and have that love, regardless of the meat suit, the outer, the ego outside of that,
Right.
How they express themselves in the world, they are on their own path. They are learning their own lessons. They're on their own journey.
Right.
And you can only be responsible for yourself, but you can also recognize the fact that, you did sign up for this. You came into this world saying, I have these experiences to learn. These are the experiences I need to have. Of course, I think of like, what the hell was I thinking before I got here?
Why did I sign up for that again?
Right?
Yeah.
But I did, and it's important. And when I got to a point when I could actually be grateful to my parents for everything, and because all of my experiences made me who I am, I felt that was huge. And I was talking to somebody about that, and they're like, wow, that is pretty big, because a lot of people don't get there. A lot of people kind of stay mired in this thing. And again, that's where they are. That's their path. That's their journey. But if you can start to look at your parents, not as your parents, but as flawed humans,
Yeah.
Who are immersed and have their own struggles and have their own
their own past. Yeah, their own past. And think of like when we think, or at least myself anyway, when you think of how much we've released and let go and are less activated by now, when you think of, like you said, the trauma coming from older generations, even before our parents, there was a lot of physical things and a lot of emotional things that were not so pleasant, and like nowhere to go with that. Then they still have it all within them, and then trying to like raise the next generation. Like it's a big ask when you don't have any support or outlet, just because people didn't know. It was just like you said, get on with life. You just kind of go through the paces of whatever to survive, have a job, put food on the table, that kind of thing. It's just like no room for self. We have, I guess, the luxury of sort of self-development, self-awareness that we can now. But so, you don't have to look back too far to see just how gnarly and nasty and things that they had to deal with. So yeah, so seeing them as a wounded person that's a totally different, again, a shift in perspective.
Well, definitely. I mean, care for mental illness is relatively new for us, and being able to have access to this kind of energy work is relatively new, in our history, human history. I mean, like my parents didn't have access to Reiki or biodynamic craniosacral therapy
Right.
or any of these things.
Yeah.
And their parents certainly did not. I mean, my mom's parents were in, post World War II,
Right.
Italy. So it's like, they were just, it was all about survival. My dad's parents in Maine, all about survival, and then their parents before them. I mean, and as we find in the emotion code, a lot of the things that that come up are definitely passed down from epigenetics, like trapped emotions that you actually can inherit, 2, 3, 20 generations back. And then think about different communities who have just generational trauma over and over again. So yeah, there's so much, and you don't know what someone's story is. And this is actually kind of funny, because I was watching Ted Lasso last night. I was having a talk with a friend, and I was like, oh, I got to start watching Ted Lasso again. For one, I'm releasing my heart wall, so I have something like uplifting to watch.
Yes, it's so good.
Yeah. And so last night was the episode where Colin comes out to his team.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then Roy goes to the press conference and tells his story about making the joke and then the guy beats the crap out of him, and then he sees him later, and he finds out that, like, something terrible had happened. I mean, I don't want to do any spoilers, but something terrible had happened, blah blah. But he's like, I guess I did do a spoiler. It's been out for a while, so like if you haven't seen it now, whatever.
Okay.
But he's like, and he makes eloquently in that gruff voice of his, says, you don't know what's going on. They're all human beings. You don't know what's going on, and just being able to buy a ticket doesn't give you a right to yell abuse. Well, same with your, in these relationships, and like with your parents, like so many children do not know their parents' story or their grandparents' story, or so you don't really know. Yeah. I didn't learn a lot of stuff about my parents until I was much older.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So who knows what they're really dealing with? It's kind of, growing up is like, I knew my mom was kind of nuts, but like things really unveiled them, or I guess, kind of progressed as she got older.
Right.
And then I also learned more. And now also I'm learning more and more about both of my parents by doing the emotion code stuff with them. So yeah, it's pretty amazing. And does it mean that everything they did was right? Absolutely not. Or did they do things that caused trauma for my brother and me? Yeah, totally. They totally did. But we have to, that stuff is, as an adult, it's our responsibility to deal with that and to heal ourselves. And then also, part of that healing yourself is recognizing that your parents are human beings and with their own stories and generations back. And then to forgive them, not by saying everything's okay, but by saying that I'm releasing that. I'm releasing those things. And I'm loving you as the soul that you are, not the ego.
100%. Beautifully said. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but it's
it is.
But it's a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I keep thinking, oh yeah, I'm good, and then stuff will happen. I'm like,
yeah, well, that's why. But I feel like that the more work we do, when stuff shows up, you can very easily recognize it, as opposed to just react. Whereas before it was just a whole bunch of like emotional reacting, but and then go back and go, oh, that was a bit over the top, but not really having any kind of conscious thought about where that was all coming from, but I feel like the more you uncover, then it's kind of like, oh, that was interesting. That was like an immediate reaction to something somebody said or something. It's like, well, so you really hone in more particularly on things, which I think is so great, and then you can go work on that one thing. So yeah, that's what all these messages are so great for, because then you can just really delve into them and tear them apart and see what needs to be excavated. So
yeah. One of the things I learned from listening to Dr. Leanne Oak's stuff is you're not responsible for your first emotion, but you're responsible for your second. So you might have the first thing come up, and then you can, like, as you just said, witness it, recognize it, and then choose how you want to respond instead. And the more you do that, the easier it gets.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. But I think when it's all jumbled together in the moment of whatever's happening, it's really hard to identify it. But I feel like the more streamlined it becomes and the less the things are, then there is that moment of, oh, I usually say X, Y, Z, and it's just like, oh, it's coming. It's almost like you can see the visual coming, that thought's in there, and then it's coming down the pipes to go out the mouth. And then you can have that moment of recognition, and then, wait a minute, let's rephrase that, because I know where that's coming from. And then go deal with that. But yeah, so I love that part, because it makes life a lot easier, as opposed to regretting something you've said, or just going off at it and just like stomping like a 2-year-old kind of thing. It's just it's definitely better to have more of a grip on things, and to realize that some things it's just automatic, and it's just something that you've just always said, or some fear that comes up, because I know that's sometimes, if the kids are going driving somewhere and it's just like my mother bear or my protector is like, oh, wouldn't it be better to go tomorrow? Weather's better. Like there's always that little, and I know that's my mom talking to me too, or my dad too. And so it's not, but then it's, recognizing, well, it's just because you're caring, you obviously want them to be safe, and, but you also know they're adults as well and know to check the weather and will drive safely. But, there's that automatic that wants to just pop out. Nope.
Yeah.
Say that. So.
Well, then we go back to the, be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Be kind and patient, recognize that, this stuff can be hard. It's hard sometimes to be conscious about this stuff.
Yeah.
It's so much easier just to be reactive.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not helpful.
At the end of the day, no, not so much. Can cause more friction than solving, but yeah, definitely so. No, the payoffs are grand. The work is hard, but at the end of the day, it definitely becomes easier.
Yeah, it definitely gets easier and easier, and just and being kind to yourself gets easier, and being kind to other people becomes easier as well. The more you do this work, and that's really what we need in this world, honestly. Because we need more love and kindness and care for each other. Compassion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Agree. One step at a time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, are you feeling complete with this episode?
I think that was,
Yeah.
They tied in nicely together. It's beautiful how that works.
I know. I love the messages that we get. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
So to our listening audience and watching audience out there, please like and subscribe. And I'm Angela, and my website is thisreikilife.com.
And I'm Kim at keycranio.com.
And you just have a lovely day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Kim and Angela talk. Please like and subscribe below. To book sessions with Kim, visit keycranio.com. To book sessions with Angela, visit thisreikilife.com.